Hi guys, and welcome back to the Compass Box Studio channel. For all the audio nerds out there who want to know how we've actually patched up the studio, how's everything connected to each other, this video is for you. We're here talking about Patchbays. So one of the most important pieces of gear in our studio, regardless of our interface, the mic pre's, the compressors and EQs that we have, is surprisingly the Patchbay. Now what is a Patchbay? A Patchbay is fundamentally the nervous center of your entire studio. It connects every single input with every single output. Now the problem with Patchbays is how you choose to wire them, because there are three main modes in every Patchbay. There's a through mode, which is the default mode of most Patchbays, the normal mode, and the half normal mode. Now, depending on what you use your studio for, you will choose certain inputs and outputs to be linked together through a normal Patchbay, or you'd want certain things to be as a through because you want to be able to connect them to multiple different inputs or outputs. It really is based on the workflow of the studio. Now, for our specific studio over here, we have 24 line-ins that are coming from the live room. We've got 24 XLR jacks that are going from the live room all the way to the Patchbay over here, terminating through a TRS connection. Now, I searched a lot online to figure out, can we pass Phantom through a TRS connector that goes into the XLR out there in the live room? And the answer for that is weirdly disputed. Like, there was no consensus as to yes, you can do this or no, you can't do this. But what I found out is that if you have a fully balanced Patchbay, which we do, you can pass Phantom through it without too much of a problem. So if we take a look at the Patchbay over here, we have 24 tie-ins coming from the live room. So this top row over here, first of all, you can see we've got three different Patchbays because of all the gear that we have. But the top row over here are the live room ties. So these are 24 inputs that we have coming from the live room. Every single one of those are normal to some kind of pre. So the first 8 over here is the Universal Apollo X3P Unison pre's. And then we have all our output pre's from input 9 all the way to 24. Now, the way I have chosen to wire this up and chosen to do the through and the normal is based on best use scenario. I wanted a Patchbay done and wired in such a way. So I'll show you a schematic of what my drawing looked like when I was designing the studio. But the schematic is designed in such a manner that I can record all 24 inputs into my audio interface without using a single Patchbay. Because that's what we primarily do at the studio, we record. If I were to use output gear as part of my signal chain, then I have to use a Patchbay. But if I don't need to use anything and I just need to run my pre's directly into my audio interface, this is what that Patchbay looks like. It looks exactly like this. There are no patch cables anywhere. All these 24 inputs are normaled into 24 pre's, and all 24 pre's, as you can see in the second Patchbay, are normaled to the inputs of my interface. So without using a single patch cable, I know we have this little patch cable over here, but that's because the normal function on my Patchbay is actually messed up over here. But all these pre's, which are color-coded in red, the outputs from these are normaled to the inputs of my audio interface. So I can record from 1 to 24 without using a single Patchbay, aside from this one, into my audio interface and record without having to spend 15 minutes setting this up. Now, continuing on with this particular color-coded thing, you can see that white over here is kind of like our live room tie-ins. Red is our pre's. So inputs of the pre's, the inputs of the pre's are over here, but the outputs of the pre's I've actually put on a different Patchbay. Sometimes what happens is engineers will link both the inputs and the outputs of the pre within the same Patchbay. I did not want to do that. The reason I've distributed the inputs of the pre's and the outputs of the pre's on two separate Patchbays is because I can just daisy chain them one after the other. This is kind of how it's going. It's going, let's say I plug into some input number 15 in the live room. Input number 15 output is going into the input of the SSL channel 6. The output of the SSL channel 6 is going into the input of number 7 on my UAD device. So no patch cables, and I can record everything together. So reds are pre's, yellows are EQs, and purples are compressors. So that's kind of how I've chosen to do the entire wiring and the routing of the Patchbay. Of course, you'll see how messy it is behind because there are so many cables terminating onto this particular Patchbay that there's no easy and neat way to do all the cable management. That's one thing I'm hoping if I have a little bit more time later on, I'll be able to clean that up a little bit. But for the most part, this is what the Patchbay looks like. And this is what it looks like from behind. Now, if you can see the schematic of how I went about doing the designing for the Patchbay, it's done in a slightly unusual way because, like I said, the inputs and outputs are actually split across multiple Patchbays. This allows me complete flexibility to record without spending 15 minutes first patching everything together. Now, like I said, if I want to use an output device as part of my signal chain, then I definitely have to use a Patchbay. But the best part about this is that I can start a session and get recording without worrying too much about what's actually happening on the Patchbay. When I'm mastering a song, all these patch cables are going into different inputs and outputs. So when I'm using my output analog gear, like in this particular example, I'm using the compressor, I'm using my Neve 511s for a little bit of preamp gain and some saturation. I'm using the SSL ultraviolet for my mastering EQ, and I'm using the bus compressor, the Audioscape SSL bus compressor as well. That's when I have to use patch cables to patch in my inputs and outputs accordingly. The best thing about my Patchbay right now is that everything is labeled also really, really well. So if you look at the Patchbay over here, and this is made by a company in the US called Trace Audio. This video is not sponsored by them, but I just want to give them a shout out because they just make really, really good stickers for your Patchbay. The other really interesting thing about this Patchbay is that every single input has an option in the front panel to choose between a normal, through, or half normal connection. Some Patchbays, you have to go to the back of it to change it. The beauty about this Patchbay is that all of that, if you want to change the way it's set up, you can just change it on the front panel, which is very, very handy. This is a TRS patch cable. There's also TT or Bantam patch cables, which we are not using over here. Ideally, I'd like to use that because then it takes up less space. So I've got 48 inputs and outputs in one of these patch cables, but with a TT or Bantam, it's 96. So which means you're getting double the inputs and outputs within the same one new space. But TT is also significantly more expensive. And the other problem is that if you want to change a connector from being through to normal, you have to reach in the back and rewire the whole thing, which I didn't really want to do any of that stuff. So shout out to Trace Audio for getting that labeling done. It really, really helps when it comes to remembering our patching and stuff like that, because we don't have to open up that really badly drawn schematic that I had done initially when I was designing the studio. So what do you guys think? You think this Patchbay is designed correctly? You think I've wired everything up, in the most efficient manner? Please let me know down in the comments. It really means a lot to hear what you guys are doing with your Patchbays and your studios as well. Make sure you like and subscribe if you think that the videos that we're providing over here are of some value to you. It would really, really mean a lot if you can share, like, and subscribe to this video. And let me know, what else would you like to see an in-depth sort of like tutorial on when it comes to the studio. We've got gear, we've got outboard gear, we've got EQs and compressors, we've got instruments. It'll be great to know what you guys want more from us. So until next time.